Welcome. Here we are for September. We're resuming our discussion of I Ching Predictions for 2025, written by Eve Smith. The September chapter opens with Propriety. That's the only hexagram for the month of September. It's about aligning with the natural order of things. That's how the chapter starts out, and being very mindful of following up on the details and being willing to put the work into whatever projects or relationships that you're working on. It's not about rushing through things and that things are going to mystically, magically get handled, but that energy, the effort is going to equal the output. So it's about being willing to put in the effort required, managing the details, and being aligned with your own integrity in terms of working things through to the end. What do you think about that, Deborah?
I agree. Propriety is important. The concept, the action I see as the alignment issue is being in harmony with doing what is right, with taking time to do what's right, taking time to do it thoroughly. I may have mentioned this before because I think about it a lot, but remember several years ago, there were those motivational posters that would say teamwork or excellence or focus. And then there was a counter reaction to that kind of parody of that, things like non-cooperation or childishness. And the one that was my favorite was mediocrity. The one for mediocrity showed a picture of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which, as we all know, got a little bit off schedule there. And it goes, mediocrity, you'll save a lot of time and no one will really notice until it's too late. So we don't want to be mediocre. We want to follow propriety, follow through, look at details, and carefully measure what we're doing and take care to make every effort to be thorough and mindful in what we're doing.
Summed up the essence of what Eve had written in the very beginning, introducing this chapter. As I was reading through it, I was reminded of Virgo because I think Virgo as a sign, and correct me if I'm wrong, is very detailed oriented and very thorough. So I just thought here's September, and the very beginning of September is the time of Virgo, and it's not till almost the end of September that the other sign comes in, which is Libra, and that's my sign, the balance, the scales. That just struck me as interesting as we start off with the focus on mindfulness of details and being in alignment with your values, being in integrity with following through, and being willing to do the effort that needs to be done. I was also reminded of chat on some of the social media sites where people were bemoaning how much work there was to do and all kinds of things that I think this chapter is speaking to, which is as a collective learning, you do what you need to do to get the job done and you do it right the first time, because the consequences can be disheartening, even devastating, if you don't take the time to thoroughly know what's needed and what needs to get done. Look at some of the rocket launches. They blow up before they even get a liftoff, and that's because there's a failure of one little piece, or there's a rush job to get something done in manufacturing or production, and out comes a crummy product. And then there's the big recall, and all that has impact on all of us when we go shopping in the grocery, or you begin to wonder, is it safe to eat this after some of these kinds of problems that occur? And like you said, not being mindful of taking the time to make sure that the things that need to be followed are followed, that you really investigate what needs to be done and be thorough in your understanding, then do what you need to do, even if you think it's taking a long time. So what? If someone isn't killed because of E. coli or something in their hamburger, what difference does it make if it took a lot of time?
That's true. I have to say, think big about this one. I always think of the Titanic It was not exactly a rush job, but there were many shortfalls with respect to safety on the Titanic, and it was truly a tragedy, just a compound tragedy. Fortunately, at the time, a lot was learned from that tragedy, and maritime safety was demonstrably improved, but at a great cost to human life. It's one of my favorite tragedies because at least it was finite. It wasn't a war or conflict, it was one terrible event. But trying to be as detail oriented as we can stand to be, and trying to go back over our work. You mentioned the rocket launching programs where one small part can be out of alignment or could have a structural failure. We see that every day when we try to text. And spell check tries to read our minds, makes a terrible muddle, but if you're not careful, you're going to roll with what comes on the screen, and your message is going to be compromised if it's not manifest impropriety outright.
One of the things that was mentioned in the chapter is double check your work. Take the time to look at things. It does make a difference, and especially how you show up in the world.
On the second page into the September chapter, one of the pieces of advice that's given is to recognize when to work and when to rest. That sounds very simple, but like a runaway spell check in your document, I think that sometimes rest also gets away from us. And I appreciated reading that and being reminded to try and keep some balance between work and rest.
Trying to push through and get something done, I miss stuff. I overlook things or I make mistakes when I'm tired. And if we have the grace or the opportunity not have to finish it right now, then we can get a good night's sleep and look at it with fresh eyes. Many times it's like, oh, this is not what I meant, or this is not good. Let me redo it. What you bring up is very important about rest.
It's a good word to use, Alice. We don't hear that word enough, I think, the word grace. Grace, is given after hard work. After you put in the effort, then possibly you'll receive that gift of grace, that gift of insight.
As we're talking about this, what comes to mind is it feels like, or it appears to me, that our country is running on fast forward. There seems to be this push to everything has to be done right now. I think of Amazon changing its delivery so you get something in 24 hours or 2 days as opposed to 3 to 5. And the expectations are just hurry up and get it done. I think there have been a lot of accidents that could have been averted. People getting maimed on production lines. There's some dangerous jobs. Some of our people who work in the poultry industry, in the meat packing industry, and in some of the food processing, and even in some of the industries where they're working with hot metals and things, where everything has been speeded up and you've got to be on top of it all the time. And that can't go on forever. You can't be assigned to a 10-hour shift and do that consistently over and over again without some catastrophe. That's just my opinion. But what we were talking about reminds me it's more important to really be thoughtful and mindful and do the best that you can and not rush and just do something sloppy just to get it out the door.
That's true. Again, that goes back to the Titanic and the captain deciding full speed ahead because the ship is unsinkable. It hit an iceberg and it sank, and thousands of lives were lost. That was over 100 years ago. And you're right, things have speeded up considerably since then.
There was a part in the chapter that I found interesting, and I just wanted to read some of the highlights quickly. It was that we're learning as the collective. Again, the energy is for the collective, it's around us. So it's influencing all of us. And the skills for the collective that we're learning again are to acknowledge the work that's required to get something done, as opposed to, oh, this is no big deal. I just whipped something off. And that there's a correlation between the energy that you put into taking care of whatever the project is, all the details of it. There's a correlation between that input of energy and the quality of the output. I think sometimes with AI, you put
Mhm.
something into Chat GPT and 5 seconds later, you get a manuscript. You got to put a little energy into the information that you give. And then you've got to take your time and thoroughly read exactly what was put together because sometimes it is off. It's not correct. And that's the kind of stuff we don't need to be circulating all over the world. As you said, when to work and when to rest, that's something to revisit in this wound up environment that we're in. And then safeguarding. Are you diligent? So if there's setbacks, are you suffering? If you're
Okay.
finding setbacks or feeling suffering during this time, you may be overexerting or out of alignment. What do you think?
With respect to safeguarding, I'm skipping ahead a little bit to the takeaways for September, where she mentions two things. Respect for effort is one, and also balance and harmony. Again, doing what's right and aligning yourself with the purpose that you want to maintain. That issue of alignment. To me, that has a kind of built in safeguard. If you are aligned, if you are where you should be, when you should be, then hopefully you're in that safe zone.
And taking the time to make sure you're in touch with your values and your purpose and what you should be doing, and that you have all the component parts figured out. You've looked at everything and following what needs to be done. There was one of the reflection questions review the areas of your life, and it gave examples like finances, relationships, career, etc. Does the effort and energy I'm putting in correlate with what I receive? Recently, I've been reviewing my budgets in the area of finances. This started last week, so I'm thinking that I already moved into the energy of September in last week, even though it was the end of August. As we've said before, this isn't, it only starts on September 1st and it ends September 30th. You can start earlier or later. I was spending time going through all the individual items that I had projected in the budget, looking at where I was and balancing that out. Been a lot of effort. It's been a daily thing to get my budgets back in alignment. That's exactly, I think, what the intention of this information in September was about, getting clear on all the little details and components and then managing them. I kept looking at what's my goal with my budget. What is it that I want to be able to do? And I want to meet all my financial obligations. So that was something that I was doing, and it's made a huge difference just in a week's time. I noticed there was this little shadow hanging over me because I wasn't clear what was going on, where I was, and all of this. And once I put the time and the effort into it in detail, line by line by line, I feel not whole and complete. I don't think that's the right term for it. Maybe some relief or certainly clarity. And I have a plan for what I'm going to do. And I feel more comfortable. I'm not out of control. Things are as they should be. And what there is to do is just to maintain going forward to the end of the year. That was just an example that came to mind when I was reviewing this section. How about for you?
I really love the cover of this book. And as we've mentioned the issue of alignment several times, I want to be in alignment with my inner dragon. You're absolutely right. It's important to set financial goals, maintain a budget, and go line by line. But I hope in another month or two, we can possibly do some flying.
Well, I peeked ahead to the next month, October, and it looks like a shift and a little flying is in order. This month is about the effort equaling the quality of the output. And shortcuts, from what I was reading, there's a warning shortcuts don't necessarily work out well and can have unintended consequences. Do you think, oh, I'll just whip it off, it'll be fine? But there are consequences that can show up and be upsetting derail you. On page 84, under cautions, I underlined any type of manipulation will end badly. That's a prediction. Act with constant care in every interaction by paying attention to details and completing each task with precision. It doesn't say that it has to be a huge burden or overwhelming. It's just to take your time, slow down a little bit, and make sure that all the tasks are before you and then you complete them. Further down under caution, it said this energy is like a task master. If you're not careful in every way, you may reverse your progress. So, this is for the month or for the period of time that we're in this collective energy of September. Propriety then is to go with the flow. If the flow is precision and detail, then nothing wrong with you. If you slow down and you're precise and you're handling details, you don't want to be hurried and pushed along. Propriety asks that you understand the effort required and consciously commit to it. I noticed what's lined up in the first half of September for me are a lot of things that do require a lot of organization, managing the details, being conscious that you're not missing anything. For example, I'm going on a trip and I'll be going out of the country. So I need to remember to pack my passport. I have a habit of packing the morning of, which is never a good strategy. Like when I opened this and read this, it's like, oh my goodness, this is exactly where I am right now.
This is a travel log that's going to coach you for your travels.
Do you see anything like that happening for you in September, Deborah?
Less dramatically, I'm doing a poetry reading. Agnes Scott College has an annual international reading, and so mid-September, I'll have 6 minutes typically to read, and that doesn't sound like much, but it takes a huge amount of preparation. And last year, I wanted to write one new poem specifically for the reading, and I did. But because it was new, because I didn't labor over it for years, if not a decade, it was only 85% I felt effective. But this year, nevertheless, I'm doing two new poems, and I want to just see where that energy leads. And of course, I'll continue to work on them probably for the next 2 decades. But the idea of there's nothing else that I do that is as detail oriented as both writing a poem and then reading it, every word and every syllable counts. I will be accountable for every word and every syllable. And so that will be my tribute to the propriety that September is going to encourage.
The attention to the detail and the effort in order to equal the output that you intend to produce. That's a great example. What were the takeaways?
The takeaways were on page 85, mindful action, which we've talked about, respect for effort, which is never ending, balance and harmony, always helpful, and foster accountability. Clearly, we're accountable, or we need to keep that front and center that we are accountable for our actions and for our interactions.
How will we know when the energy shifts? You will feel the change between September and October when everything is working out and it seems like anything is possible. At the end of September, we're at the end of the third quarter. There will be what's called the third quarter collective energy check in. So we'll have that to reflect on and discuss the next time we meet.
Sounds good.
Have a great September.
Please have a September that is filled with propriety.
Thank you.
Okay.
Enjoyed it.
See you later, Alice.
Bye bye.